Well, in Nevada, the Super Bowl isn't the only big event taking place this week. Voters in the battle-born state head to the polls today for both the Democratic and Republican presidential primaries. Today's GOP primary will not determine who wins the state's 26 delegates. Following a disagreement, the delegates will be determined later this week. Nikki Haley will appear on today's primary ballot, but not in the caucus. The situation is reversed for President Trump. And to help us unpack all of this and more is Tom Bevan, founder and president of Real Clear Politics. Tom, good to see you again. So this situation, Nevada, is kind of hard to wrap one's head around. Explain to us why there's a primary and a caucus in the state, and how and why did this get so complicated?
Well, it's been a caucus state for a long time, on both sides, actually. Democrats used to caucus as well. Now, the state passed a law recently saying that the state had to hold primaries. Democrats said, great, we'll do a primary. And Republicans said, no, we don't want to do a primary. We want to continue to do a caucus. The GOP, Nevada GOP, said we want to continue to do a caucus. So they tried to sue so that they wouldn't have a primary. And the court said, no, you can't overturn this law, but you can restrict the delegates. And so what they've done is they're holding a separate contest. As you mentioned, on Thursday, there will be the caucus, and that's the one that's going to count for the delegates that will go to the convention and vote for the nominee of the party.
Tom, could there be a scenario in which, Nikki Haley wins the primary and Trump the caucus? And if that happens, what happens next?
Well, I mean, a win in the primary is merely sort of a media creation. I mean, she'll be able to say, I won the Nevada primary, but that's about it. It's not going to result in any delegates for her. It might result in a little bit of good publicity for a couple of days until Donald Trump wins the caucus, which he's overwhelmingly favored to do on Thursday. So, I don't know how much this is going to, affect the trajectory of this race in any way.
Yeah, I know everything matters, but I mean, how much does Nevada matter to these candidates, say, compared to, Iowa or New Hampshire?
Not as much. It's certainly Iowa, New Hampshire, and even South Carolina to a certain degree are the states that really sort of count in the early going, and particularly this year with Nikki Haley staying in and South Carolina being her home state. I think that's going to carry a lot more weight than what goes on out in Nevada. Although I have to say, Nevada is going to be a battleground state in the general election. It is an important part of for both parties to win that state in a general election setting.
Yeah, and Nikki Haley, I want to talk about her a little bit more here. She said a number of times that she's in this race for the long haul, or at least through Super Tuesday. Tom, why do you think she's hanging in for so long? I mean, what is behind this strategy?
Well, that depends on who you ask. I mean, there are plenty of people who say, listen, there have only been, a couple 100,000 Republicans who voted out of the millions across the country. Let these contests play out. There's no harm in that. Others say Nikki Haley is just staying in the event that Donald Trump is convicted on one of these multiple charges that he's facing in courtrooms across the country, because the data seems to indicate that would be a problem for Trump, maybe not in a primary, but certainly in a general election. But again, she's not anywhere near being close to being the nominee. I mean, she just doesn't really have a path of any kind. And I think that's going to be ultimately, whether she stays in for another 2 weeks or 2 months, it's really, I think, in most people's estimates, just a fool's errand.
Tom, quickly, I want to ask you about this. The ruling today against former President Trump and his immunity. How much of impact do you think that's going to have on his supporters, if at all?
I don't think it's going to have an impact on his supporters. They're locked in all the way. I don't think even a conviction would have any impact on his supporters. Would it have an impact on moderates, on independents? Again, in a general election setting, sure. But a lot of folks, particularly on the Republican side, and certainly those who are hardcore Trump supporters, don't feel like these prosecutions really have any legitimacy. They're all political in nature, and I think for that reason, it wouldn't have any impact at all.
All right, Tom, thanks so much. Always appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tracy.